This is TWiT. January 27th, 2010. A day I'll never forget. The last Apple event I ever got to go to.
I think I was sitting in your seat for that one, and that's when you had the Skype. You were Skyping back to us.
Let's not bring that all up again. We were covering it live. We were down there. We even had lawn chairs out in front of Verba Buena Center, and we were talking about the release of a very hotly anticipated Apple product, the iPad, 10 years old yesterday. And 350 million devices sold, but it's been down. Sales peaked in 2013. It's been down for 7 years now. Is the iPad a success? I love my iPad, but people aren't flocking to buy new ones.
I think what's the metric?
I think
what's the metric? 350 million is a lot.
I think one of the things about it is actually the durability and the fact that I think a lot of developers never really, including Apple to some degree, never really took full advantage of whatever was being upgraded from one iPad to the next. I noticed that until recently, my kids were able to use iPad 2s for a long time and do everything they wanted to do with it. There was no feeling like it wasn't like an iPhone where you felt like all these new features are there and if I don't upgrade, I won't get them. It was kind of like, oh, this iPad works, and my iPad 1, I think, ran for 5 or 6 years. And there was no driving, there weren't a lot of apps that were really driving me to feel like I needed to upgrade. And so I think that, things that drove me to get new iPads for the kids was the pencil. And the Pro one was because I decided I was really going to use this more than my laptop.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. My laptop sits in my studio. I don't really take it out. I take it out if I have to go to do work somewhere. I'll take it out, but otherwise I'm pretty much on my iPad. Yeah.
We were still in the old brick or cottage to the Verba Buena Center. I think when we were doing this, January 27th.
Is this the one? Because is this the one?
I don't know what this open is because I was there, so I don't know.
This is the one you turned your laptop around. You got the
shut up. Yeah, here we are in the lawn chairs in front of the.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah.
Technology at its best. This is what it's all about.
That's Jennifer Jolly from Channel 11 interviewing me on Channel 11 while I'm interviewing her on TWiT. Very confusing. There we are, the lawn chairs out front. Colleen had built some sort of crazy gadget that was allowing us to
before we get
stream
on, and we have some great people coming up,
live.
including Jason Snell from Macworld Magazine, Ryan Block from GDGT, Tom Merritt is here from Buzz Out Loud. Everybody's here. This is a huge event. I do want to mention one more sponsor, a great sponsor.
Okay, we'll skip that. I don't know who they are, and they didn't pay for it, so I'm not going to give them the free ad. We won't show the part.
That's the first.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute. Who's that guy? Who's that guy with the hat there?
Wow. But when you're used to the feel
I sure
of an
dressed
iPhone
funny back then,
or a
didn't
mobile
I?
device, and you get it in your hands, and those people don't.
That's Ryan Block on the left. As I mentioned at the time, GDGT, which was his successor to Engadget, and Andy Ihnatko there with the exactly. You look unchanged.
No, I have a slightly different style of eyeglass frame.
So do I, for that matter. And it looks like I'm wearing corduroys, which I haven't worn since 2010. So, but those were fun. That was a fun event.
That was a.
Go ahead.
That was a great time because we knew that Steve Jobs was fading.
Yeah, and he was very ill looking at the time.
Yeah, and that's why when I attend these events, I know that I can always I know that there's a video of it that's going to be streaming or on the web somewhere. So I'm not necessarily focusing on what's on the stage. I try to see things that are not being covered by cameras. And what really, really affected me was watching Steve. Whenever there'd be a video, he would be off stage, but just enough on stage that he was watching the screen with his arms folded and this big old smile on his face. And back at a time where you would think that, no, he's probably going to be sitting down, any chance that he gets, there's probably a reason why. I bet that was probably one of the reasons why his presentation was in a very, very nice looking, comfortable chair, from like a modern living room set. But no, he was just so beaming from side to side, happy as a clam. And you could tell exactly how much faith he was putting in this device, that this was going to be, he couldn't wait to see exactly how it played out.
Isn't that great? Yeah. And it was, I think, a very exciting event because the iPhone had been such a success by then, 3 years old. And we just couldn't wait to see what the next thing was going to be from Apple. And we had a pretty good idea it was going to be something special.
And the iPad came first, right? Before the iPhone. It's from a development perspective.
Right.
That's the weird thing. Yeah, it came out after 3 years later, but they had been working on it longer. I think this is when we got it. I don't know what this is.
No, I think this is me. This is me. I had a pre-release, and this was.
Oh, okay.
This was my one set of videos that has more than a million views.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. So is this when it had just arrived?
This was I posted it on launch day. I had it for a couple of weeks before launch day.
Oh, you did.
And this was before the days of I'm going to make so much money off of YouTube on this. It was more like there are things I need to shoot some things that will go with my copy. What's young Alex saying?
So Alex was hosting this.
Oh no, that's right. Now
this is what you were remembering,
right? Yeah.
And then I guess I was out in the field, and you were there. Yeah.
It's you look so young. Everybody looks so young 10 years ago. It's adorable.
Except me, because I was already old.
Go ahead, Lory. Tell us that you were in junior high at the time. You didn't have a driver's license, and that's fine.
Nope.
But it really, I think, regardless of how many they sold, it really changed the direction of what we thought of as kind of portable cheap computing, or inexpensive computing. We were really going down cheap laptops, and this kind of shifted all the gears.
And I know that tablets existed before the iPad came out, but the iPad is what made tablets popular, and I think it really did change the way not everybody, but a lot of people compute. And when we're in our little tech bubble, we are like, oh, well, the iPad couldn't possibly be a replacement for a computer. But we kind of live in a special environment where we need our computers for a lot more than a lot of people do. Most people didn't need a home computer. Most people needed something that was more like an iPad or a tablet. And so, Apple brought that to the table and said, you can still have computing in the home, but you don't have to have a full-blown computer to do it. And that replaced a computer for a lot of people. I know a lot of people who just have an iPad in their house because they don't need the extra that a computer brings. Well, it doesn't, it's not as expensive. It doesn't take as much space. It's a better in between.
Yeah, and I think that what I noticed is that the only people that really couldn't use an iPad alone are people who are computer natives. We grew up with computers. We worked on them every day, and we were kind of used to how that works. Kids, I noticed, just use iPad. My kids just use iPads. And then I also found that like folks that left the workforce before computers were their everyday bit, they just jumped right on iPads too. It was only the people who we spent all the time with our mouse and all the time with our keyboards where we really felt like we couldn't get away from it.
There's an amazing thread from Steve Sinofsky. He was talking about Microsoft's internal reaction as they were watching. Steve Sinofsky, for anyone who's not familiar, was running Windows in Office at the time and was charged with Windows 7. And they had a whole tablet PC initiative. And they were just watching this presentation going, oh, Apple's going to announce a tablet. It's going to be a Mac-based tablet with a stylus. We know exactly what they're going to do.
It's going to be running. Because that's what Microsoft would have done.
And they were just watching going, no. And every expectation had to be changed immediately.
Yeah, we forget that this didn't come from out of the blue. Just like with the iPhone, for a year, everybody knew that probably by the end of the year, maybe in January, Apple is going to be introducing a tablet computer of some kind. The only surprises were exactly what form it was going to take. And I remember the biggest speculation was not so much about what it would do, but how much it would cost. And I remember just this gasp in the audience when they said $499 because the smart money was $799.
Remember that? It was $999 and $499 fell down and destroyed it. It went clinkle, clinkle, clinkle everywhere all over the stage.
Also, watch the video and pay really close attention to how I don't want to say vague, but how amorphous Steve's and Apple's explanation of the iPad was. They wanted, I feel as though they knew that they had something really, really different, and kind of like with the first generation iWatch, they knew that it was going to be the software environment that was going to define this device, but they didn't have the software and they didn't know what people are going to be using it for. So they tried to avoid referring it to they wanted to avoid giving people the impression that this is going to be a really good color ebook reader, or this is going to be a really good movie player, or this is going to be a productivity device. They covered their bases everywhere, but they knew that if anybody really pressed them on any one of those points, particularly the people who wanted to insist that this was a competitor for notebooks, competitor for previous Windows tablets that ran the full version of Windows, they're saying, well, clearly can't be a computer if it doesn't have a USB port. It clearly can't be a computer if it doesn't have a keyboard or a mouse. And hope you flash. Right. And so these are the sort of things they're trying to head off by trying to present sort of a digital Rorschach test to say whatever it is you really wanted this tablet to be, this presentation has to convince you that this is the perfect thing for that thing.
So it's interesting. I put together a whole video on this, the secret origins of the iPad. I got to interview a bunch of people about the whole process of making it. And the interesting thing is the brief for the iPad was just, I want a glass surface that I can use to read email anywhere, like anywhere. I want to be able to pick this up, no keyboard, strip it down. I want to be able to sell it for like $500 and just go anywhere and read my email. And they added a few other things to that. Like Steve Jobs said, no one reads books anymore. And then he's like, Don, make me iBooks. I need iBooks by launch. And so they had to add a few features to it, but it was, and Jobs called it the most important product of his life, but it was never meant to be a computer. And there have been these huge battles inside Apple. Like a lot of people say, like when Steve Jobs passed away, the iPad lost direction, but no, like you can clearly see that he had a direction for it that probably would not make many people happy right now, but they really did not want it to be complicated at all. It was supposed to be this thing that made computers even more addressable, comfortable, approachable by people who were still put off even by Macs. And that's what the initial iPad delivered, and especially the second one. And I just remember exactly what Alex saying, all my retired high school teachers were lining up on launch day. I went down the line and went, hey, Mr. This, hey, Mrs. And they were all there to buy a computer because it was finally a computer that didn't make them feel stupid.
I remember saying at the event, this is the computer Apple was created to build.
Yeah.
That this was what they couldn't do it in 1977, but this was what they always wanted to do.